So originally, I was going to review Flatout 2 today. A lot of my regular viewers seem to really enjoy my review of the original, and many of them stated that they thought Flatout 2 was better. Not so sure about that myself, but hey, to each his own. But instead of telling you why I disagree, I decided to do Crysis. This is mostly because after talking about it during my Far Cry 2 review, I got the itch to play it again. And play it for probably a 4th or 5th time, I did. Because, damn, I love this game. At least the first half or so. So Crysis is made by a team called Crytek, otherwise known as the Far Cry 1 guys. It's a first-person shooter that puts a very heavy emphasis on being able to take on the objective in multiple ways. I'm not talking Far Cry 2 and beyond ways where you have different weapons to take things out. I'm talking about getting to point A, as you can take higher or low ground, open fire on enemies with a sniper rifle, or just plain sneak by them. This is because the game's main gimmick is your prototype nanosuit. But before I talk about that, let me talk about the story of the game. You play as a Special Forces soldier named Nomad, who is in a squad with leader Prophet and backup Psycho, Jester, and Aztec. You are traveling to an island that is inhabited by Koreans, who are occupying it due to some sort of special scientific endeavor. A distress signal was received from the Americans who are working there, and hence why the nanosuit-wearing men are inbound to the island. Right from the start, something feels amiss, as when you jump out of the plane, something whips by Nomad and wipes out his suit. Soon after, Aztec is ambushed and murdered. You'll fight a ton of hostile Korean soldiers, but soon after you'll find an unidentified creature bursting through and attacking both your team and also the Koreans. It's up to the Raptor team to find out what's going on and put a stop to it. So your nanosuit. You get access to all the functions right from the start of the game, and by default, you will have the defense equipped, which acts as a regenerating shield that will protect your health. If you don't have the shield at the ready, all damage will go straight to your health, which will regenerate in 5s slowly. If you're in a lengthy gunfight, defense is definitely the best way to go. But of course, that's not all. You also get access to a speed perk, which I used frequently to move around the island a bit quicker. You'll run faster by default, but if you sprint, it'll eat up your energy quickly, but let you run like flash-like speeds. Not to mention that you can use this to crawl quicker and leap over larger holes in the ground if need be. There's also a strength attribute you can use. I found this to be the least useful, but if you like heavy weaponry, this will actually benefit you. Not only does it let you jump higher, but you can also knock most enemies out with one blow with it. It will also allow you to throw your enemies much further and harder, possibly taking out more enemies in the process. Finally, if you're shooting with the strength active, you will also keep your weapon more stable. Each shot will eat up a small part of energy, but the recoil will be practically non-existent, or at least much lower than without the strength active. The final nanosuit ability is the cloaking. I use this quite a bit, because nothing in the game is as fun as activating Cloak once an enemy already spotted you, sneaking up behind them, and popping them in the head. If you're standing still, the Cloak won't eat up a lot of energy, but as soon as you start moving, it'll drain quicker. The faster you move, the quicker your energy reserves will deplete. If it reaches 0, it'll automatically switch to defense mode. In addition, as soon as you take any sort of action, like shooting or throwing a grenade, any remaining energy will immediately drain and you'll uncloak. If you're quick enough, you can quickly switch to something other than the cloak before firing to prevent that instant wipe of your reserves. This is especially true in a firefight in which you fire, drain your energy, and then you have 10 Koreans blasting you with their rifles with no shield power available to save your sorry ass. So if you can't tell, using these 4 abilities can allow you to mix and match your tactics for whatever the situation requires. As I said, I did a lot of stealth in this game, which seems to be what Crysis leans heavily towards. Sure, you can go nuts on the trigger, but it may not end well, as enemies can be pretty plentiful at parts, and ammo can seem to be used up fairly quickly. Since the island is fairly open, there's several ways you can reach your endpoint. You can drive a vehicle on the road and use the mounted weapon to slay anyone in your way. You can take a lower path along the beach and use silenced weapons to take out the few soldiers that are looking for you. Or maybe you'll risk the jungle and just run around the trees, hoping you won't be found. The choice is completely up to you. Of course, sometimes you'll be given an explicit area that you need to take, but this doesn't happen all the time, which is nice. It gives the game a feeling that no 2 playthroughs are exactly the same. Plus, if you're struggling at specific points, you can try a different method to get through it. The weapons of the game also help lend to that pick your poison mentality. All weapons can be modded, although some more than others. There are different categories for each weapon that can be customized. For example, you can slap a laser, flashlight, or grenade launcher on the front of your weapon. Do you want a sniper scope, an ACOG, a reflex sight, or just the iron sights themselves? In the case of the enemy's assault rifle, do you want to play around with your incendiary ammo? You can also mess with the firing rates of many of the guns. In the case of the shotgun, you can change the spread of the buckshot, which is pretty neat. And just because you find a gun in the wild doesn't mean it's stuck with the attachments that you found on it. Once you find an attachment and pick up the weapon that's holding it, it's available for good. Well, for the most part. So once you pick up a precision rifle, that sniper scope is good on any weapon, even the shotgun if you fancy that, for some odd reason. You can also remove the sniper scope and just use iron sights for it. Again, if you really want to do that. So let's talk about the enemy forces you'll be attacking. For a good half of the game or so, you'll be going up against the Korean soldiers that are defending the island. The AI is actually pretty smart, and they'll attempt to use tactics to outsmart you. The normal grunts are equipped with shotguns and assault rifles, and aren't the brightest of the military. But when you get to the snipers that will gladly take pot shots at you, and the special forces troops wielding the submachine guns with the lasers, you'll have to work a bit to take them down without being killed yourself. Eventually, you'll come across the elite who have nanosuits of their own, although these are considered knockoffs and aren't as cool as your own. But if you see one of these guys, you'll really need to be on your guard regardless. But the thing that blew me away then, and still kinda does now, is how they react to each other. They'll call out for help, scream when they're all alone, or even accidentally shoot each other. Hell, although I don't think I have any video of it, they can even trip over each other. If you knock one down one way or another, if there are other soldiers near them, they may not watch where they're going and flat out fall over the body of their teammate. It's freaking hilarious when you first see it, but then you realize they're getting back up and you should probably cap them. But then you reach the halfway point or so and get introduced to the real enemy, and for the record, the next minute or so will contain spoilers, so you've been warned. So who is the other enemy? An alien force, of course. That big-ass mountain that was being explored happens to be some sort of alien structure that is sucking up electricity for power. At one point after taking down the main bad guy, Nomad is forced to explore this unknown area, and his suit freaks the hell out, losing all bearing. You'll also lose all weapons at this point, so any kind of upgrades you've had are pretty much gone until you find them again. You'll find several aliens and have to fight them, and eventually you'll emerge at one hell of a sight. The island now looks like it just had the blizzard of a lifetime. You'll have to get to the extraction point while taking down any hostile aliens that approach you. Now, this may seem pretty freaking cool, but sadly, it's not. Because this is where the game is completely flipped around from a game where you have multiple routes to complete your goal to a straight up point-to-point action game. And not a great one, because honestly, these aliens are a bore to fight. Even if you're using incendiary rounds, they still take way too many bullets. And if you're using the infinite ammo ice shooter thingy that Prophet gives you, they take even more blasts. But it's recommended because otherwise you'll run out of ammo fairly quickly. They only have one attack for each variation of enemy, and once you learn that, it's like, okay, this is getting boring. They won't attempt to flank you like the human enemies. Instead, they'll just use brute force and swarm you. Not as fun in my opinion. And what compounds this is that once you emerge from the alien structure, you won't fight any more humans. It's all aliens from here on out. So there's no point in using anything other than defense, other than maybe speed in between battles. Even when you leave the island and get in the final battles on your cruiser, you'll be fighting a seemingly endless supply of these alien bastards. Even the final battle is kind of lackluster. Don't get me wrong, I love how instead of using normal tropes of fire or acid, Crytek picked ice as the attack of choice. But I feel like there should have been a little bit less stress put on the aliens, and maybe did more with the Korean forces instead. Other than that, Crysis is a fabulous game, and what review would be complete without talking about the graphics? It's well known that it was used as hardware benchmark when it was first released, joking that even the developers couldn't run the game on maximum settings. Believe it or not, I used to be able to play it on maximum. At least, I'm about 99% sure I was. The only catch is that I had to downgrade it to lower settings in the final battles, as the game would get massive frame rate drops and crashes against the final boss. Even nowadays on my Windows 10 PC with a pretty hefty graphics card, it crashes on the final boss. So I've given up and just dropped the settings to the lowest settings to muddle through it. But since, like Far Cry before it, the game takes place in the jungle, there's heavy emphasis on the island's atmosphere. And although I never walked through a jungle, I'd assume they nailed it. Trees are lush and vibrant. Large rocks litter the sparkling beaches. There's some pretty sweet waterfalls. The lighting is believable, being blocked by trees. Add in the fact that many pieces are destructible, such as some trees being able to be shot apart and small shanties blown up with explosives, and the game can get interesting fairly quickly. It's a shame that not as much is detailed as Far Cry 2, as in trees would erupt into flames, but it's still enjoyment to view. Even today, nearly 10 years later, Crysis still looks amazing. So now on to the few issues with the game, other than the aliens being boring to kill. First, the alien structure. Since you don't have a minimap, you don't get access to an objective marker. Normally, I wouldn't care so much, but this area is very difficult to navigate, and since it's all in zero gravity, you might get disoriented quickly. Add in that much of it looks identical, and you might be backtracking accidentally more often going forward. Secondly, there's some questionable hitboxes. Or maybe it's just collision detection. I don't know exactly what it is, but there are times where you might be attacking an enemy from further away, and they just keep eating your bullets without falling. You'll hear the bullets hitting, as there is a specific sound for it, but it's just confusing on why you can see the enemy. You can hear them getting hit, but they clearly aren't dropping. The only time this doesn't seem to be affecting the gameplay is when using the precision rifle to snipe your enemy. Speaking of shooting your enemies, I have one last complaint, although this is fairly minor. Where the hell is the blood? There are bloodstains on the ground once corpses despawn, but why are there no blood splatters when shooting your foes? I never understood this aspect. It's like EA is afraid of blood or something. Far Cry 1 had plenty of blood, but not Crysis, a game which is graphically superior. I don't get it. Then that's Crysis. To this day, even with its flaws, I still love it. The story is fairly entertaining for the shooter, sure, but the main draw of the weapon and suit customization really do allow you to play the game a different way each time. Well, at least up until you enter the mine. Most modern PCs can play it now at respectable graphics settings, so by all means, pick this one up if you enjoy yourself a shooter. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.